Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat. We are so excited to have the amazing Lori Ann Spagnana here with us today. I was practicing earlier to talk about living your soul's highest fulfillment. But before we get into today's Fireside Chat, I just really quickly want to share a little bit about the Grateful Giraffes for those of you that are tuning in on our YouTube live stream. The Grateful Giraffes are a vibrant community of over 800 members who value gratitude, wellness, and impact. And we're both spiritual and grounded at the same time. We come together to co create meaningful experiences while building community and also a community owned lifestyle brand dedicated to human flourishing. So you can go ahead and check out our other fireside chats on our YouTube channels. And if you also want to learn more about the Grateful Giraffes, you can go to gratefulgiraffes.com. Today, Fireside Chat, we have Lori Ann Spagana here today. And Lori is a best-selling author, speaker, spiritual catalyst, intuitive, a multidimensional channel, mentor, animal communicator, energy healer, starseed, contactee, and visionary who has transformed the lives of thousands of humans and animals via her channeled ascension guidance, intuition, sacred energy healing, dormant DNA activations, divine transmissions, and animal communication. Lori also channels a group of non-physical beings called the Collective, which includes a collective group of ascended masters, divine goddesses, angels, teachers, loved ones, the animal kingdom collectives, star family races, interstellar beings, and other non-physical realms. Lori is the founder of the Sacred Visionary Mentorship for heart-centered, mission-driven visionaries and leaders who want to make a global impact, contribute to the expansion and upliftment of humanity, live their life of their dreams, and achieve their soul's highest fulfillment. We are so happy that you're here and welcome to the Fireside Chat, Lori.
Well, hello, Minling. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm excited because this is like, I love this kind of topic, and I know a lot of people in this group also are excited to hear your take on, all of these things. And let's just go ahead and dive in. I would love for you to share a little bit about your journey and, how you got to where you are and do what you do.
Yeah, well, basically, I would say the long and short of it is I was, out of college working in corporate America from week one. Like, I think it was day 3 or 4, I realized that this was going to be a slave life, if that was the way it was going to be. I spent about 20 years working, almost 20 years in corporate America, like every night crying myself to sleep. And in those 20 years, I developed all kinds of behavioral habits that were basically, numbing me, like excessive spending. Created a 6-figure credit card debt, bad credit card debt, over drinking 6 or 8 beers a day, over smoking 2 packs a day. My thyroid was off. I was drinking excessive amounts of coffee to stay up all day. I couldn't get to sleep at night. I was drinking excessive alcohol all night. And all of it was numbing. I call that numbing, carpet sweeping, spirit, bypassing. I just couldn't cope. My thyroid was off. My hair was falling off. I was falling out. I was excessively overweight. I was going to well-meaning doctors who were pumping me up with massive amounts of pharmaceutical drugs. And I was miserable. And I got to the point I really just kind of wanted to, I didn't know what to do. I just kept trying to find my way out, and I felt totally trapped. And what happened was my brother died of a drug overdose. And very quickly after his transition, I started getting messages from him. And of course, the first year, I was like, you know, am I making this up? Is this just some part of my, wanting it to be real? So it took me about a whole year to just keep playing with like what I was hearing, what I was seeing, the messages that I was getting. And I was getting told to do things. Like he was telling me to do things to kind of validate and prove it. And so I worked with that for a year before I started to realize, like, okay, this is real. And in that year, I was getting messages from like loved ones who had crossed over. And I was, dead people. And Famous people even were coming to me. So what happened was to get through the story more, I quit my six-figure job. I became a dog trainer because that was my life's desire, was to help animals. I had this ongoing mission, like dream in my heart. I just wanted to be of service to animals on a global scale. Like that was my mantra for years. So I became a dog trainer. I started hearing the dogs and getting messages from the dogs. And they'd say, "You listen to us, we'll teach you. We're going to help you." So anyway, flash forward within a year after that, I moved to Maui. I got involved in all kinds of esoteric practices, energy healing. I wanted to help the animals. The animals were telling me, if you want to help us, you have to help humans. We're here to help humans. I kept getting guidance. I was connecting with angels and all kinds of amazing beings, ascended masters, and they were all teaching me. And I was learning energy healing. And in any case, within 2 years, this is the kind of wrap up of that. Within 2 years, all those things were gone. Like six figures of credit card debt gone within 2 years, smoking gone forever. The weight dropped. I healed my thyroid. My hair started to grow back again. Um, I went off coffee. I went off nicotine. No more alcohol. No more pharmaceutical drugs gone. Haven't since then, and that's over. Now that was over 25 years ago. Not a single pharmaceutical drug since, not a single over-the-counter drug since, no alcohol, not because I can't, just because I don't want it, no cigarette, none of it, all gone. The six-figure gone. And in that time, I've been, building my business. And as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, with the guiding force of that, my role in this lifetime is to support others on their journey of awakening and transformation, and to really help people and animals to come into alignment with our source, which we all identify as our own unique journey and path. But we could call it God, we could call it spirit, we could call it the divine, we could call it the quantum field. And so that's my work, just helping people to really reclaim the truth of who we are, the divinity that is within, and our access to that infinite source that is infinitely available to us, and where we really become magnificent. We are that already. We reveal it to ourselves. We allow the divine to work through us. And then in so doing, we make the impact we're here to make. We're aligned with our higher calling, our true north. And we just fall in love with ourselves because it's the divine within revealing itself. So yeah, it's the long and short of it.
No, it's a beautiful story. Like that's such an amazing like transformation that you went through and the guidance and bravo to you for listening to that guidance because some people would just like brush it off and be like, "Oh, I'm just, hearing things." And you just really dove in and you stepped into your purpose. So thank you for so much for doing that. I would love for you to share a little bit about, the topic we were talking about, your soul's highest fulfillment. Like what is that? And you talked a little bit about your purpose, your direction, what you're here to do. I would love for you to share.
Yeah, your soul's highest fulfillment. This is like every person on the planet has a reason for being here. You're incarnated for a reason. And that highest fulfillment is not just about the work that you do, although it certainly is. It's really about what is the soul's divine agenda. So the agenda of the soul is to resolve certain issues. Now, those issues that you're here to resolve are your greatest challenges, your obstacles, your hurdles, your limitations, your limiting beliefs, belief systems, thoughts, judgments, the emotions that you experience that are generally not fulfilling for you. Like they could be the fiery emotions like rage or anger or, resentment or jealousy, or those are the fiery emotions, or it could be the watery emotions like deep sadness, depression, grief, sorrow, or it could be more of like earthly emotions like I'm not good enough, nothing I do makes a difference, nothing's working for me. Like those are the things the soul is here to resolve. And every unique soul has different things. Now, those are things that fall under that umbrella of the karmic patterns, right? And those patterns you developed, all of us have, in this and other, if you're willing to believe it, in other lifetimes. Now, even if you don't believe in that, that's okay. You could go the physics route that you exist in parallel realities all at the same time, right? So that's your consciousness, because we are consciousness. Really. We're not the body, we're not the mental state, we're not the emotional state. We're beyond even beyond energy, but we'll say everything's energy. So it's because consciousness is a form of its own energy, and energy is a form of consciousness. So all those things, you're here to resolve those things. And that's why people are struggling because when people are in the struggle or challenge, or they're feeling like discouraged, or things are just so hard, or they're pushing up against walls, or they feel like they don't know how, or they're reaching their own glass ceilings, it's what they're here to resolve. That's part of the soul's agenda. And that is usually addressed, and we'll get into this more, as like some form of trauma healing. We don't think of that as trauma, but it's a trauma for us. If we're trying so hard to accomplish something or achieve something, we spend 20 years in a job that we're miserable at, suffering, crying every night, smoking just to get through the day, or whatever, eating so much sugar. That was my thing too. Like whatever it is we're doing to buffer, to suppress the calling that's within us, it's because something has to be resolved and addressed, and it cannot be swept into the car, in the closet or under the carpet. So that's part of the soul's agenda, and it won't be denied. It won't allow us to pretend it doesn't exist. It becomes the blocks. It's the blocks that we experience. So also part of the soul agenda, which is the best part, is that as those issues get appropriately resolved, and when I say appropriately resolved, I mean, it's not just mindset shifting. It's so much more than that. Because I've met people who have done amazing mindset work, and they've got tons of money and they still feel worthless inside, right? You know that, right? So once we appropriately resolve these issues, which again, more than mindset, more than emotional shifting, this is why traditional therapy, while it has its purpose, it really is not serving in the best ways possible. It's energy shifting, it's karmic resolution, which that happens on a plane of existence at a vibrational bandwidth that is beyond what traditionally we've ever understood or been able to access, right? But the best part is the dharmic part, because that's when we start revealing who we really are to ourselves. We start fulfilling our highest purpose, our highest calling. We start doing what we absolutely love. And these things aren't just a linear process, right? It's sort of like an ebb and flow, like ebbs and flows. But overall, the dharmic part is like you're doing what you are most called to, most passionate about, most excited about, what you love doing, what you love sharing, your brilliance, your magnificence. And you're not just sharing it just in terms of your career. It's like your life. You go out in the world and you're just shining bright. Like I walk into the juice store every day, and the juice store people are always telling me, "You're our favorite customer." It's just because I'm shining my light. I walk in there. Sometimes I do their numbers. Sometimes I look at their astrology while I'm waiting for them to make my juice. Sometimes I'm just sharing some pearl of wisdom. It's just me being me, right? Like you walk through the world and you feel in love with you. And I'm not saying it's 24/7. I'm not saying you don't wake up with challenges or hurdles sometimes, but overall, you're living the life that your source, which is the divinity within you, intended for you. And you're feeling like you're making a significant contribution that's right and appropriate for your unique soul. It's your highest, truest calling, and it gets revealed to you through you as you do this other work of resolving those things that are in the way, right? That's what I mean by the soul's agenda.
I love that, the way that you explained it, and it's right. It's so true. Like the blocks will come, but it's like God whispers, and then it gets louder and louder and louder until you don't listen. And then I love the analogy of like, it's working through you too. It's like what the analogy that I got was like it's turning on your own inner light, your own inner light bulb, and that's why you shine so brightly. So that was like it was really beautiful the way that you explained it. I would love to go into the part about, the karma and how to resolve it, because I feel like a lot of people, when they're trying to go on their soul's purpose, they feel like they're blocked or something's in the way or they still can't get ahead, but they can't figure out why they keep on hitting that block. Can you go into what that block is and how do you resolve it?
Yeah. So when you're experiencing any kind of block or limitation or frustration, almost, especially if there's a pattern where it feels like it's repeating in some way, whether it's a relationship, a money thing, a career thing, whatever it is, that's again, it's part of the soul's agenda. So the way to start to address that is to understand first and foremost, everything's energetic. Everything is energy. So, and everything's based on vibration. All energy is based on where you're vibrating. So you're in this vibrational bandwidth where let's just use the example of you're feeling stress, anxiety, or fear about something, or worry or doubt. That energy vibrates kind of like this. And so if you're trapped in that, you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I can't see my way out. And all that's hanging out here is this vibrational bandwidth. So in order to make that real shift, you need to work. You really do need to work. This is why coaching and mentorship is so important. And in what we call the old paradigm, it was like a traditional doctor or therapist. But the thing is in most cases, they're vibrating there too. Because what happens is you're basically attracting to you, law of attraction, same or similar frequency where you're at. So in order to make that transformation, then you need to get out of that vibrational bandwidth with a coach or a mentor or a healer. Or if it's something you can access within yourself, start paying attention to your own thoughts. What is it that I've been thinking? What is it that I've been believing? What is it that I've been saying in my own head over and over again? So you have to address it on the mental plane. That's the mental plane, the thoughts, the beliefs, the belief systems. What is it that I've been feeling? You have to address it on the emotional plane. What are the feelings? Is it stress, anxiety, terror? Okay, now you got to go deeper. What is it within me that has caused or contributed to this or is co-creating this from an energetic point of view? I get that sounds not easy to do because if people aren't understanding that or how to do that, that's why mentorship is so helpful. Regardless, it's about transforming the way we think, what we believe and perceive, all the thoughts, beliefs, opinions, judgments, perspectives, because that's what's coming from us right now, based on the vibrational bandwidth of who we are and all the emotions that we've been feeling. That's what's emanating through us and from us when we're feeling stuck or blocked. Those are the things that need to be addressed first. Once those start to be addressed and you're digging deeper, like what's the reason for this? One of the best things to be asking is, how is this meant to serve me? How is this experience serving me? And if it's not, if you really know it's not, then you're ready to release it and resolve it because you don't need it anymore. You get the gifts from the experience. What are the gifts of consciousness? What are the gifts of consciousness? The way I say it, it's God, source creator, the divines, truth. What is God's truth regarding this experience? What is God's perspective? What are the gifts of consciousness I'm meant to receive from this experience so that I can be resolved on it, so that I can be free and liberated from it? So that's the initial work, right? Because until you get the gifts of consciousness, you're vibrating in there and you can't find your way out. You're trapped in what I call a frequency fence. I call this a frequency fence because that's the frequency where one is vibrating. Does that make sense? Is that yeah? So those are the initial steps. You have to start working with the mental plane, the emotional plane, the energetic plane, and you start your overall the soul's agenda is I want to resolve this. What am I meant to learn? How am I meant to grow? What is it I'm meant to realize so that I can be free of it?
That was so beautiful what you said, and I love the part where you said it's like ask it like what was it meant to like serve you? How did it serve you? What was like the lesson in it? Because we can get into like this victim mentality that oh woe is me, it always happens again, and like here I am again, and I can't get out of it. But it's all about asking better questions and really shifting your focus and energy. And how would you say like people could help raise their vibration into a space where they can start to because I think some people still get stuck into the victim mentality and like even if they ask the better question, they still get the same answers of like I'm just stuck here. But like how can you start to move your vibration so you can start to see your way out of the fog that you're in?
Yeah, so good, Minling. Such a good question. First of all, just the fact, even what you just said, the victim mentality right there, That is energy, right? We don't think of these things as energy. Victimization happens at an energetic bandwidth. When you raise your vibration, and I will definitely address that, it's so important, you can get out of the victimization bandwidth. When you start realizing that your thoughts, your emotions, and your soul's agenda is what's causing and contributing to the situation that you're in, whatever it is, that's part of getting out of victim mentality. It's part of recognizing your power within to make the change that you need. It's part of the power of the restoration of your personal power. Regardless, victimization, self-sabotage, um, let me give some other big ones: victimization, self-sabotage, slave driver mentality, argument and debate, right and wrong, arrogance and superiority. I'm better than this. I'm nothing. Like all imposter syndrome, anything that you could label as a archetypical pattern, those are also energy, and they can be free, because maybe part of what your soul is here to resolve is the fact that you've been victimized. And chances are you have, because there's not a human on earth who hasn't been victimized somewhere in some incarnational experience. So maybe just identifying that pattern, whether it's victimization, imposter syndrome, because again, we all go through these, that might be part of what the soul's here to resolve. And by identifying it and recognizing, and again, it can't be just on the mental plane, because even beyond the emotional, mental, energetic, spiritual, there's so many levels and layers, but the behavioral plane does exist in the physical. So by taking different actions and saying, yeah, I'm not just not going to play into that anymore, it's part of the solution. Okay, that said, how does one raise their vibration, which is such an important question, so important. So let me just give this fundamental understanding of like vibration, because I'm sure people in the group already get this. I'm sure lots of people get it, but a really good example of how vibration can work. Just imagine going and sitting in a jail cell, like in a maximum security prison for a week. And after the week, you're you feel horrible. Like you're just gonna feel so bad, because that's the vibrational energy you've been hanging out in. And if you hung out in there like a whole lifetime, that would become your vibration, right? And of course, we don't want to hang out in that kind of energy. Now imagine going to your favorite spa, and there's just beautiful music, celestial music playing, and like the air smells like beautiful organic essential oils, and there's just wonderful people taking care of you and nurturing you, and maybe there's some affirmation books and whatever. You feel even as I'm saying it, I can feel within my own self the difference. And then if you take it even further, to let's just call forward for just a moment the concept of the energy of bliss or euphoria or just joy. That energy is a totally different frequency, right? And so in the everyday physical world, most humans aren't yet learning or haven't yet learned how to get themselves into states of ecstatic bliss. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be there all the time, but I'm giving you the idea of different energy frequencies and vibrations. And so the idea is that we all have to, in my opinion, we have to, but it's a choice, to learn how to change the resonance, the frequency of where we vibrate at, so that we are naturally, organically, generally vibrating to frequencies of energy that we most enjoy, that are right for us. For some people, it's just peace, and that's great, just divine peace, right? So it's about learning how to utilize energy from within and how to be the energetic vibration that you most desire to experience. Now, how do you do that? If you'd never heard of it or you don't do it, you got to get yourself into meditative practices with teachers who are very progressed, who can help you. Because this is not just basic visualization. I'm not poo-pooing on basic visualization. That's fine, but that's a tool of the mind. Visualization is a tool that you use here, and that doesn't really do the full kind of energetic transformation that I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting the self into states where You become a new version of you because you are no longer vibrating here and instead you're vibrating here. And that's just your way of being. That comes with practice and discipleship. That means you have to continuously put yourself around people, groups, meditative practices in spaces and places, including nature, where you can become resonant organically, naturally, and consistently in that state of being.
That's so true. It's like it is different bandwidths, and I love how you explained it that way. And it is a conscious choice as well, too. Is like where do we want to put ourselves, and it's our responsibility to always check our own, I guess, temperature from vibrational standpoint to see where we are, so that we can shift it on a regular basis, and we can take that responsibility for ourselves. So that was just really beautiful the way that you explained that. I would love to shift a little bit to because we talked about like purpose and fulfilling purpose. Like, how does one start the path to uncover what their purpose is? And even because I think a lot of people are trying to come from it from the mind aspect, being like, okay, if I do X and Y and Z, and then this will happen, and they try to map it out. But I feel like your approach is more intuitive. So, like, how do somebody get in tune with that side of them and their purpose from an intuitive standpoint versus their mind standpoint? And what does that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, this is how I would say go out and do what you love the most. And I'll elaborate on this. And while you're doing it, ask over and over again if it's required without trying to answer it yourself. Ask, how can I do more of this in ways that are of service to others in the world, ways that are uplifting for me and for the people who want and need this and value this, that are aligned with my personal mission and purpose? How can I do more of this and be fairly financially compensated for it in a way that feels good and right, in a way that is divinely aligned? Now, that alone, if you go out, let's just say you want to be a photographer, or maybe you don't even know what you want. Maybe you're trapped in a job that you detest. Schedule a day every day of the week on a Saturday or a Sunday that is a glorification of you and the divine, and go out and just play. And let's say you go to, a Reiki healing circle and you're like, oh, I don't want to learn about Reiki or I want to learn about energy. Let's just say you go and you do something. You're like, no, not for me. Let's say you want to be a photographer. You go take a photography class on your day that you're scheduled and you're like, yeah, I didn't like it as much. Let's say it's golf. Then you go out and try golf. Whatever it is, go out and do it. Explore, play. And then when you find what you love, keep doing it, do more of it, and be asking, how do I invite more of this into my life? How do I do more of this in my life so that I can expand it and offer it to others? It might be knitting, whatever it is. And you, like I said, you might not know. And if you don't know, just go out and play and explore because that is, we're shifting into a new paradigm on earth. And we're we're having to it's unfortunate that we're learning it kind of sometimes the hard way, but the shift requires us to actually play and have fun and be joyful and find a way to share it in the world. That's it.
Those are beautiful questions. It is about asking like better questions, and like feel like God, universe, source, whatever you want to call it, will always want to give you the answer and will always tell you. Um, What about this part about like, sometimes like how do people know it's intuition? How do people know it's not intuition and it's fear? Because I think it's very tricky, like whether it's intuition or is it my fear or is it something else, and where is it coming from? Is it my mind? And I think people can get into a loop and get confused on what is true intuition. So what is intuition and how do you start to cultivate that so you can start trusting when you get the guidance for those questions that you've asked?
Yeah, such a good question. Okay, so first of all, I want to just make this clear. Everyone has access to their own intuition. There's no one who doesn't. It is a process like any relationship. You don't become, or you typically have, love at first sight. I mean, it's not that it's not possible, it's that you're developing a relationship with your own self and your own higher team. And one of the first things I just think that's really helpful to understand, and this isn't exactly what you asked me, but I will directly answer your question, but to understand that humans are operating from a beta brainwave. And when you're awake, and that brainwave is not an intuitive brainwave. It's just not. It's the brainwave of doing. It's the brainwave that's typically associated a little bit more with masculine energy, action, and analyzing and logic and thinking. So one of the first things to start to develop, in a sense, and I'll make it even easier than this, but just understand that there's other brainwave frequencies and we haven't been taught how to use them. But learning how, and this is something I always teach, it's very easy to learn how to access a theta brainwave. That's where you're going to get information. It's like the information superhighway. And when you learn how to access that theta brainwave, you're going to get a lot more intuitive that way. Number one. Number two, this has been made a joke of, right? This pineal gland, pituitary gland, thyroid, third eye. But when you understand that the foods that we're eating, the genetically modified foods, the artificial substances, chemtrails dropping in the sky, fluoride in the water, these, Pepsi Coke, Diet Coke, just artificial sweeteners, it's calcifying this part of the brain. And it's the most important. Okay, I can't say it's the most important part of the brain. All parts are, but it's the part that allows for all of us to become highly intuitive. And it's the part that allows for extrasensory abilities to develop. So it is true that it's a very important part to begin to eradicate those foods and those substances from our system as best as we can, and to work on developing and decalcifying these. And there are practices that help that. There are easy, enjoyable breathing practices, meditation practices. I know I teach them and they're very easy to learn and do. And that will awaken incredible amounts of intuitive capacity for people. And I could go on about this. Really, we have to, through meditative practice, start to balance the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain. The right hemisphere is very intuitive. That's the side that animals are already using. That's why they are so conscious and intuitive already. The right side of the brain knows what the left side of the brain is trying to figure out. So that's part of it. And then the heart center has not been used. The heart has brain matter. It literally has brain matter. There are all kinds of scientific, real valid science validating this, right? The Institute of Heart Math has been studying this for years. So we have to learn how to develop the brain matter in the heart, because that is our sentience. That is part of our intuitive ability to move with the awareness of love, compassion, sentient awareness, consciousness in a whole new way that we haven't been using, because as a human race, we're only, for the most part, except when we're sleeping, it's a delta brainwave, but we're mostly using the beta. So with that understanding, the reason I say that part is because it's important for everybody to understand we all have this ability, these abilities, which are so far beyond what we currently are utilizing. With that, the short answer to your question is, how does one know the difference between, if it's coming from them or if it's their fear or what is it? It's that you start playing with it and you start asking, I'm only interested in receiving guidance that's truly in service to this is how I do it, right? You could do it. There's lots of ways to do it. This is like a lifelong learning. And there's full courses and things on this, but it's literally about beginning to make the statement, I'm only interested in receiving guidance that's truly for my most benevolent best, ideally always with harm to none. And when you start stating that as an intention and a desire, even before we started our call, Mingling, you were like, let's set an intention. We know intention is the driver's seat of reality. So you intend, okay, I'm intending to develop my intuitive gifts and capacities, and I'm only interested in that which truly is benevolent and serves my most benevolent best. Then every time you have to start listening to your own thoughts. You have to start, and this goes back to where we started. If you want to become, and I say have to, but it's a choice, right? To pay attention. What am I hearing? What am I sensing? What am I feeling? What am I perceiving? What is my perspective? You're asking, you're inquiring, and then you're asking, like, who is a really good question is, who is this coming from, or where is this coming from? And how does this make me feel? Because here's the truth, real, true guidance for you will almost never, ever make you feel worse. It will almost always, I mean, 99.9%. And I'll tell you what the other percent is, the other point is, but it'll almost always somehow uplift you, somehow inspire you, somehow elevate you, somehow expand you or motivate you, almost always. So a really good question is, who is this coming from, or where is this coming from? And if it's not coming from that which is what I call of the light, in other words, serving your expansion, your evolution, your growth, if it's not coming from that, then what that typically means is it's not really serving you, and it'll dissipate very quickly. Because the moment you ask that, if it's not of the light, it dissipates. Does that make sense? So the other point I was going to make, oh my goodness, I think I just lost an important message. Point of that was, oh, where is this coming from? Is the same thing, because if it's not coming of the light, if it's coming from somewhere else, or if it's not how serving you, it just dissipates. Okay, the other thing I was going to address was the 0.000.9%. And that's if there's something in there that the light wants to trigger within you for you to resolve. And that could feel very painful, but that's less likely. So I'll give you an example that recently, not even so recently, actually, it was quite a while ago, but it was one of the biggest like up levelings I personally had, was that I was going through a challenging time. I was trying to navigate it. I was like stuck in my own thing. And I really heard it as loud and clear. You're a worthless piece of shit. And it was coming from my higher consciousness. And I just went into such a painful experience of reckoning with that, reconciling with that. And I understood, it took me a few days. Oh, I had to clear that was in the unconscious. And it needed to be spoken to me so loud that I could hear it like a voice, so that I could finally realize, because I never felt that way about myself. I was moving through life like feeling so great, but it was something that my soul really wanted to clear. And I also know that when you start doing this kind of work, you're really helping the collective. You really are helping humanity, because you're uprooting the energetics that are keeping other people stuck, right? So it just needed to come out. It needed to be exposed. It made me feel horrible. I dove into the depth of it. I was willing to work with it. And I mean, it just complete transformation after that, like freed and liberated. So that's the very rare occasion something like that could happen. But almost always, your guidance, your inner navigation is going to be leading you into a direction that feels good.
I love all the questions that you're asking. These are like great questions. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to take down these notes and rewatch everything, because I'm like, I'm going to be asking more of these questions. And it is the internal guidance. It is playing. It is kind of seeing like, okay, what direction, and just allowing it to be. There's like no attachment to it. It's no expectations too. I think that's also like a very important piece when you're playing. But I want to go to what you just mentioned about like how consciousness brought something to your face, and like you were willing to go into the depths. Because I think some people are not willing to go into the depths and heal that aspect, and they don't even want to look at that. So what is your advice for somebody like who is ready for that transformation, but still a little bit afraid of what they might see within themselves, that it's maybe like the darkness, or the muck, that, or the trauma, that they're not really ready yet? But how do you kind of help people get through that hump, if you will?
Yeah. Well, first, I love your question. It's such a like a meaty, juicy question, right? Because those are the blocks. And if you don't want to go into it, if you're not willing to, this is what we call shadow work or trauma healing, right? That was a trauma that I had. I wasn't even consciously aware of it. It was just a trauma that was coming up to be resolved from, who knows, this or some other lifetime, right? And I wasn't consciously aware of how it was affecting me in that example. So my point is if you're not willing to do that trauma work, Or if you're not willing to, look at your own shadow, then you live with it. And that's why people have the blocks. So you can make a choice. You can continue to try to live with the blocks, which is far worse, that kind of pain and suffering, than really looking at the shadow. Now, I get it. It's hard to face those parts of ourselves. It's really hard. And, when you're looking at that, it's so easy to, but when I say just looking, you're embracing it. It's so easy to think that it's the truth and to think that it's never going to leave you, but it's through the embracing of it. It's through the allowing of it that it does transform, that it leaves forever, and that you are freed and liberated from it. So, no, nobody wants to look at that. It doesn't feel good to face the parts of yourself that you don't like. It doesn't feel good to face the parts of yourself that you would rather no one have to see. It doesn't feel good to face parts of yourself where you've caused pain or suffering to another, or you've been, let's just say some of them, you've been maybe a complainer or a whiner, or maybe you've just been miserable. Maybe you've been like, I don't, there's all kinds of things humans do that we do. And until we can resolve those things, we live with them. So it doesn't feel good, but it's not the truth of who we are. And this is the one piece I would go back to, is this is why it's so important, in my opinion, to really find the right qualified energy healer, coach, mentor, who really can hold you in such a space that they also know that's not the truth of who you are. That's a shadow aspect that you, as a brave, brilliant, courageous soul, are resolving forever. And let me say that once you resolve something, really, that energy is lifted from the planet. And we don't give ourselves enough credit because we don't understand how energy works on this earth. But if you clear energy that gets lifted, you make the whole planet lighter. This is not woo-woo. This is real fact. So by you being willing to be the courageous soul who embraces the part of you that you'd rather no one ever see and you'd rather not admit to your own self, and learns how to love and accept that part of self and really transform the energy of it to reveal more of the brilliance of who you are, the extraordinary being that you are, that's that is beyond courage. That is beyond love. And that is beyond service. That is even beyond, like, that's how you make real global impact. But it's scary, I know. And that's why I really encourage getting someone to help who won't, forget for you, who won't believe that that's your truth. That's not the truth of who you are.
Yeah, it's so important to remember, like, when you're doing this work, that that doesn't define you. You might have done that or said that, but that's not who you are at the core. And like, if we can always remember that we are all good people and we're here for these lessons and we're learning, I think that's like the most important part of doing the shadow work and going deep. And it's definitely a courageous act. So thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah.
would love,
Can I just add one little piece of
yeah.
it? I teach people how to embrace it and how to work through it so they're no longer resisting it. Like, that's actually really so much easier than you realize, to let that energy move through you without any attachment, and recognizing that it's just energy. It's not bottomless. Your shadow, whatever your shadow aspects are, your traumas, your wounds, your insecurities, your fears, your worries, the difficulties you've had in relationships or with money, or, whatever it is, or with health issues, that stuff, that energy, it's not bottomless. It's not the truth of who you are. In fact, you are the love that it is seeking. And you have the power to use that love that you are to transform it. So,
That's so beautiful. It is. We're all seeking that internal love. And if we can give love to that ourselves, like we accept ourselves for all of it, it's like the most healing piece. It's like when a parent forgives and loves you just like unconditionally, it's like the best feeling in the world. I would love to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about, manifestation and co-creation, because I think in the spiritual world, we talk about that a lot, but not everybody knows and understands how to co-create or how to manifest. I think it's just vision boards or just like, just visualizing it to death and just like holding it. But then there's like the attachment of it. Like, how do you I guess, manifest and co-create from your experience so that for the people in this group can start utilizing those tools for themselves as they go on their purpose.
Okay, yeah, I love this question. So first, the thing is, I just want to say I personally almost never use visualization. I think it's a fun game, and I think that it can work, and it's definitely worked for me when I've played with it in the past. Like, I visualized for a while this just for the fun. I've done so many visualizations that have come into reality. So I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's just that there's a way more effective tool, way more powerful. And the first is to recognize that you're a creator being. Every thought you have is creating, every emotion you have is creating, the entire energetic structure of your being is creating. You are creating all the time, 24/7. And that might be hard for people to understand, but it's your life is a reflection of your creation. Your physical health is a reflection of your creation. Your entire experience in the physical world is a reflection of your creation. So if you don't like what you've created, or if there's aspects of it you don't like, it just means you have to do something different, right? So the first thing I just want to say is if you're visualizing or creating vision boards, those things are fine, but they're still only on the mental level, right? We are beings that are far beyond the mental level. Mental is important, not dismissing the power of that, but I'm saying the energetic space of who you are is so much more vast than just your mental plane. So that's why a lot of times people will get frustrated, oftentimes if they create vision boards and it doesn't work, or they do visualizing and it doesn't work. So really what it is that you become the vibrational match for what you want to materialize into physical form by being it before it ever comes in. So let's say you want to be, I don't know, give me something that someone would want to manifest. You want to be a famous speaker, right? You start just being that in your life, right? You just start being it. How does it feel? What am I like? Who am I? How do I behave? How do I think? How do I feel as that person? This is just one example. But in reality, here's the fastest, easiest way. I'm like giving people the gold here. The fastest, easiest way to manifest. Put something out into the linear future, right? Because you're always in the now. You can only manifest from the now. What you're thinking, feeling now is what you're manifesting. Fastest way to manifest. Put something into your future. In other words, let's say you want to buy a new house in the future. And that house, you may not even know what it looks like, but you start to have a sense about it, right? So let's say within 3 months or 6 months or 3 years, you want to have your perfect house, your ideal house. Okay, substitute perfect house for your ideal partner. Whatever you want to have X amount of money in the bank, doesn't matter. Put it out in some period of time into the future where you believe that you can achieve it. And between now, starting now and every now moment, start thinking about it with excitement. What's this house going to look like? Where am I going to buy it? Is it going to be white? I want white walls. I want big windows. I'm so excited. I want a beautiful property. Yeah, that's going to be great. I'm so excited. I can't wait. This is going to be wonderful. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm just so excited. This is what I'm going to have. I'm going to create this. I'm going to have this. How much money will I need to earn between now and then? Okay, how can I do that? You just start playing with it. Play with it in your mind. Add the energy of excitement. Think about it. You're not going to have it tomorrow anyway, because houses are not typically bought overnight if it's a big dream. Or, if it's a big dream of yours, is what I mean. A house can be bought overnight. But my point is if you have a big dream or a big goal or a big desire, then you put it out somewhere in the future and you think about it with endless excitement and anticipation. And you ask, how am I going to create this? What am I going to do? What do I need? What do I need to create it? Okay, what's the next step? What's the right step? What's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? Where's it going to be? That's how you manifest. And you manifest that with mastery. Why? Because every moment where there's an interfering thought, like, it's not possible for me, or it's not going to work, or this isn't working, you say, ah, that's not the truth of who I am. And there's tools you can use to get rid of that. For example, cancel, clear, revoke, renounce, denounce, and send it to the light. Not interested. Don't need it. Not willing to play with that shadow self. Or is this something so big that's been blocking me? Okay, I've got to clear this with the intention of having that house or that partner or whatever it is. To make sense? That is manifestation at its finest because you're doing that now anyway. It's just you're not attaching, your chances are not doing it in a way that you are fully conscious of, right? The way people typically do it is, oh my God, what's going to happen? I don't know. Am I going to have enough money? I'm not going to have enough money. Is it going to be possible? I don't think it's possible because that's all the fear, shadow aspects that we haven't learned how to clear, heal, and resolve, right?
I love that. It's just a play. Like it's like kids, we knew this. We could play, we can imagine, we can like, just go out there and just pretend. And it was so easy for us. And as we became adults, it's like all the other constraints came in and it's just going back to that without attachment. And I love how light you're bringing in and how much excitement you're bringing into it, and it feels a lot more fun. It feels better in your body, like you said, it's an expansion. It feels better in your body, so it is for you if you can like dream about it. So I love that so much. We have a question from Valerie. She asks, well, she basically is asking about, she's feeling like she's supposed to do something big, like a lot of people feel like that. And she's compelled to do things at a larger scale, but she's feeling stuck where she is with the skills and tools and maturity she needs to really take care of the village. Would you advise what you said, which is follow your heart? Or and in following that you'll get what you want to materialize, or is it a point to be more strategic in the process?
Okay, it's both. It's not either or, it's both. So you do need to be strategic. You're not meant to just jump off, the cliff and leap and the net will appear. That stuff does and can happen, but overall, that's just not how society and this physical reality is working right now. So, because you can leap and the net might not appear, right? So you do want to be strategic about it. And you also want to be moving forward by doing what you love more and more and more. The thing is, when you feel stuck and blocked like that, there's a reason. So I would revisit what we've looked at already, what we've done already. And I would also, I mean, when you're feeling stuck and blocked, you typically do need some kind of I keep going back to that because I think so many amazing, brilliant, beautiful people, especially, I call myself a light worker because I work with the light, which is just energy and consciousness. And so many brilliant, beautiful people. And I did this for the first 25 years out of college or 20 years. It's like we just don't get ourselves the help that we need. And we think we can do it on our own because we are brilliant, because we know that within ourselves, and because we do feel like we have the potential. But because we don't get ourselves the help, we end up getting to a point where we're just stuck and blocked, and where we feel like 20 years has gone by, and what's going to happen when we end up on our deathbed. That was my big wake up call that I talked about. So what I'm saying for you, Valerie, is it's both. You want to be strategic. You don't want to just put yourself in a situation where you can't like pay the bills, or where you can't, you're not healthy, or you're overstressed or overtaxed, or burnt out because you're just doing everything without any support, right? And at the same time, you want to be incorporating the joyful, conscious, deliberate play. And so you need people to help you with a strategic plan if you don't have one, to support you, to guide you, to nurture you, and to lead you. And you also need to take right and appropriate action in lots of the ways we've been talking about today. And whatever that calling is, here's one thing I can say as a person who's been there, right? And I get it. If you do feel like you have a calling, and Valerie, you're saying that you do, and I know you do because you're saying it, then, and I mean, you wouldn't be here on Grateful Giraffes, like, because that's the theme here, one of the major themes here. That calling will haunt you. It haunts us. It's like my desire to be of service to animals on the globe. I was the person who would go to SeaWorld and cry because I was like, I have to go help animals. I have to be of service to animals on a global scale. Like I was 13 at SeaWorld crying. I was 16. I remember, like now I don't even go to those places because I understand. But my point is your calling will haunt you until you take right and appropriate action. So you will, the worst kind of suffering to me, if you're like a healthy person and you're living your life, is not responding to the calling. That's torture. Like respond to the call.
That's beautiful. And you're right. Like we live in the 3D world. So it's not like all just like consciousness. It's a balance of both. And we have to like balance both pieces. And that calling is super strong. So definitely follow the intuition. We have another question from Mahalani, and she has two questions. What are your thoughts regarding free will and manifestation? That's the first part of her question. And the second part is, if consciousness is unfolding from the unmanifested to the manifested according to the soul's blueprint, should we just be present and do the actions that come from consciousness?
Okay, wow. Mahalani, I love you already. Love your question. Love your name too. So beautiful. Okay, so brain is interfering a little. So the first question is, what are your thoughts of free will and manifesting? And I want to say that in response to that question, sorry, when I close my eyes, I'm actually asking Source to bring through its answer for you. So it's not that I'm not present with you, right? The reality that you exist in, this is semi-channel, the reality that you exist in, beloveds, is a reality based on free will choice. That is God's gift to all beings. And all beings have opportunity to experience the game of endless free will choice. And your free will choice to attempt to manifest may or may not be your free will choice to manifest whatever you desire is always a free will choice that you have opportunity to. So you are always provided the opportunity to choose freely and to attempt to manifest whatever you desire. The actualization of the manifestation, in other words, the physicality of that which you are desiring or attempting to bring into physical form, the actualization of it, the material aspect of it into physical form may or may not be actualized based on a soul's agenda, based on we will use the words agreement, though agreement would be too limiting. The pre-agreements that you may have made incarnation. So, for example, if you are attempting to manifest something into your reality that is in accordance with your free will choice, but is discordant with your soul's true divine agenda, it may not manifest into your physical reality, or it may manifest and materialize into your physical reality at a later time, which in the interim may cause some frustration or other experience that may not necessarily be to your liking, but is there designed to support and assist you in your growth and expansion so that eventually, when the timing is right, and you may call this divine timing, your manifestation will come into reality. So therefore, there are two aspects of your question. One, and first and foremost, is the free will choice, which you all have in this reality. And your free will is always based on what you choose to believe and perceive, what you choose to pay your attention to, what you choose to think, what you choose to feel, what you choose to do, what you choose to engage with, et cetera, and on infinitum. And then what you manifest and materialize will either come to reality in physical form or will not, or will come into form at a later date based on the soul's agenda. Okay, we hope this has been helpful for you. Yeah, full on channel there. So far, does that make sense for you? And then I'll get to the second question. Hope that makes sense. Okay, second question was, can you restate that? Because now I'm a little bit in an
Sure.
altered state.
Sure. If consciousness is unfolding from the unmanifested to the manifested according to the soul's blueprint, should we just be present, be present and do the actions that come from consciousness?
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so consciousness, this may turn into a channel too, but we'll see. Consciousness is all that is, right? Everything is consciousness. Our energetic, our physical form and structure is made up of consciousness, and we are consciousness. So when you're asking the question, should we just allow consciousness? the truth of the answer to you is not necessarily, because there's like all kinds of consciousness. There's inertia, and that consciousness will say, feel bad, stay stuck, be a blob. And should you just be that? No, not necessarily. That's not really aligned with your highest fulfillment. So when you ask, should I just be and follow consciousness? Yes, yes, and be discerning. This is part of developing your intuition. This is semi-channeled. Be discerning. That's part of developing your intuition, because as you develop your discernment, your divine discernment, to navigate your reality, to recognize that that which is serving your most benevolent best is inspiring you to take right and appropriate action in the physical world. In that case, yes. And if your highest discernment is, today I need to sleep, today I need to put my head under the covers, no problem. If that is right, that is right. But consciousness is all that is. And consciousness is not always necessarily serving your highest interest. Because in your game of reality, in your physical form, all things exist. All opportunities and all potentials exist here. And the potential to exist in a denser reality is available if that's what you choose. But that is not what you are here asking about, not truly, not what is your true calling. So therefore, it is not necessarily always advised to simply follow consciousness. It is advised to develop your divine discernment. Let us add one more piece to this, if we may, and that is to say, and to elaborate on this fact, this point, we should say, that if you are watching, for example, your chronic negativity news networks every day, each and every day, you would become quite depressed. You would become quite hopeless. And yet some part of you might say, oh, turn on the news and find out what's going on in the world. And we would not necessarily advise this if you are seeking to align with your most benevolent best, for that is not simply not for your most benevolent best. It simply is not. And yet there is consciousness that might advise you to turn on the news. There is a belief or a belief system within you, potentially, that may request for you to turn on the news, that may believe it's important to know about worldly events as the news would have you see it, the chronic negativity networks. But that is not necessarily the highest calling. So we believe we have made this point, and we believe you are understanding now what we are suggesting to you. And that is, yes, be at one with consciousness. Yes. And utilize your discernment to navigate your path wisely. I hope that's helpful.
Wow, that was so beautiful. Everybody's been like going in the chat saying Lori's like phenomenal. Like this was my favorite fireside chat, like loving what you're saying. So I think it really, landed with everybody here and everybody's been enjoying this conversation. We just have one last question from Shervin, and I think it'll be a good like I guess summary wrap up a little bit as well too. And then I would love for you to share like how people can learn more about you, get to work with you and all that stuff. But he wants to make it a little bit more bite-sized. And I was going to ask, like, what is your one advice for like, people or key takeaway, but I think his is really good. What is one thing he can do or we can do right now on a regular basis that will bring us closer to understanding or hearing our own calling?
Go one thing, go out into nature, no technology, sit still, be quiet, and start asking, what is one thing that I can do to move myself closer to my true mission and purpose? Get quiet, get still, get peaceful. Cut out exit the external world, all the technology, and get used to being quiet, still, and peaceful within your own self with no distractions. That's one thing that you can start doing right away. And if you consistently and steadily and regularly do that without a lot of time delay, you will start reaping benefits.
That's
That's
so
what.
beautiful. Yeah, it's going back within ourselves and reconnecting without the distractions. It's reconnecting with ourselves. So that was like the perfect summary of what you just shared with us. This has been so incredible. everybody's been saying like it's been inspiring, incredible. Thank you so much. We love for you to share like how people can, reach out to you or get to know your work or, work with you possibly. Like what are the different ways that people can do that?
Yeah, well, first of all, they can get some free gifts to start to sample this. Like if you resonate with awakening, more of your dormant capacity and all this, you can go to lorispagna.com/free gifts /DNA. You can start activating your dormant potential. You can learn about that. There's a class, there's activations. So that's lorispagna.com/free gifts /DNA. If you want to awaken more of your intuitive abilities, you can go to lorispagna.com/free gifts. If you want to learn more about how to help animals and animal communication and telepathy and psychic development, you can go to lorispagna.com/free gifts /animals. There are a lot more free gifts like that, but once you kind of get in any of the free gifts, you'll get more free gifts. So that's a good place to start. And you can also tune in on I do a weekly podcast, which is the Awakened Elevated Human. And that's with me, Lori Spagna. And you can find that on YouTube or also all the podcast networks. So you can learn more that way. And of course, you can always go to the contact page at my website at lorispagna.com and just reach out. Let me know. I love hearing from people. I love engaging with people. And I don't do coaching through email, but I could definitely share with you how you can work with me more. I do like a sacred visionary mentorship program. And yeah, coming up on the 11th, I'm doing DNA activations, which are, about awakening the dormant potential. So yeah, there's lots of ways. Yeah. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
having
so much. Thank you so much for being here. Also, quickly wanted to thank Sharon for bringing you here as a guest, one of our giraffe members. So grateful for you, Sharon, bringing Lori into this space. And we were like, oh, maybe she can come. Lori can come to one of our live events, and we have like hundreds of people that come to our live events. So
me.
we
Okay.
in person, we would love for that as well. But thank you for sharing your wisdom, your gifts. Thank you for your time and we just so appreciate you and the work that you're doing to, bring consciousness to the planet, to heal the planet, to shift, the trajectory of this world. And we thank you so much for you being here today. And we're so super grateful.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure and a joy. Your group is just, the questions were awesome. You guys are just so beautiful. And I'm really grateful for your kind words and feedback and just for having me because this is like my joy. I love sharing consciousness and energy. And so I get to do what I love most. I'm grateful for all of you for being here and having me.
Thank you so much again. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And we'll catch you next week.